them, not the worst parts, the best parts. This is the best of the rest.
Hello, and Max is inbound, and these hot dogs are delicious! Welcome to Best of the Rest, the show where we take a second look at comic book movies that were poorly received upon release, but only talk about the things we like and what the movie does well. It's sometimes a challenge, but always a good time. And this week, we are talking The Losers. My name is Chris Logan, and I am joined, as always, by comic book specialist Andrew Williams. Are you ready for this one, Andrew?
I am.
You like specialist. You get it? It kind of ties into the comic book specialist.
Yeah, I get
This
it.
is the team of Black Ops specialist. It's a subtle one.
It's subtle. You didn't beat them in the face with it, but
I did beat them in the face with that opening line, though. I was looking at my.
You did.
I was looking at my sound waves as they talked about the hot dog. I was like, okay, well, I was enthusiastic about that hot dog, but Andrew, they are delicious.
They are.
Well, let's jump into it, Andrew. What is your history with this movie, The Losers? Is this something that you saw in theaters?
Absolutely. 100% saw this in theaters. Might have actually seen multiple times in theaters. I can't dedicate to that.
The X-Men Origins Wolverine treatment. You must have been very passionate about it.
Bought it immediately when it came out. Was a huge fan. I've always really liked this movie and was always kind of annoyed that it disappeared without much fanfare. So, not going to be the hardest strain on our premise for me.
Awesome. Well, I saw it for the first time this week, preparing for this episode. I did not see it in theaters. And you're right. This movie really comes and goes. Not only does it not make a lot of money at the box office, which we're about to get into, but nobody seems to talk about it, maybe even remember it. But you look at this cast. I mean, as we like to say, it is a stacked cast, especially in retrospect, because this is a comic book movie, and nearly all of these actors have gone on to play a more prominent comic book character or played one before this movie. So it is like comic book the movie when you look at the cast.
Yeah, it really is.
But by and large, you ask somebody about The Losers and they might pause, like, what movie is that? Who's in it? Or maybe not even realize it's a comic book movie. I mean, the movie's not too shy about letting you know that. The opening credits and closing credits are very stylized, and comic book panels has the DC logo real prominent. But The Losers, I mean, that's not a household name by any means when it comes to comic books.
No, not at all. This is definitely something that I think, you're not going to know that this is a comic book movie just off the title alone. I mean, it's obviously not a massively popular comic book, but it was definitely in that era where they were kind of doing a lot of, DC especially was doing a lot of smaller book. They obviously had their big movies happening at the time, but this was some of their smaller things. They were kind of fitting in the middle of that. And it comes and goes. It really does kind of jump out and then disappear almost just as fast.
It's also a time when comic book movies are kind of growing up, getting a little bit more serious. The Watchmen has come out, Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and it's not just for kids or just for family films. The movie's not rated R. They do manage to get that PG-13, but it's a hard PG-13. Is that a thing? It's very violent.
Yeah.
It's very sexual at times. Some few choice words thrown out. So definitely, geared towards the older crowd a little bit.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think this is something that was definitely leaning on its rating as much as it can. People talk about how there's things you can't do with a PG-13 rating that you need an R rating for. And this movie's one of those ones that kind of runs that line pretty closely at times.
The movie is released April 23rd of 2010. Made on a budget of $25 million, at the box office, it just brings in $29.9 million. Doesn't even hit that 30. Critically, doesn't have a great reception, just a 48% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. And the audience score, honestly, isn't much better. 54% from the audience. We talk about it all the time. Usually audience is a little bit higher, but this one, barely. So even those that did go see it, which was not a lot, weren't exactly praising this film.
No.
Much to Andrew's chagrin.
Much to my chagrin, yes. I was, and still am, very sad that this did not work out better.
The movie was written by Peter Berg, who mostly is probably best known as a director. Has directed movies like The Rundown, Friday Night Lights, both the movie and helped develop the TV show, as well as Hancock before this movie came out. After the release of The Losers, he also directed the Mark Wahlberg based on a true story trilogy of Lone Survivor, Deepwater Horizon, and Patriots Day. Actually writing 2 of those films as well. So this is just about the only movie in his filmography, The Losers, that he had a hand in writing but didn't actually direct. It looks like that was maybe the plan at one point, but didn't come to fruition with him in the director's chair.
Yeah, what an interesting, just career that he's had. Because there is this period of time where he really is just like an actor. Like in the late 80s into the 90s, he's just acting. I remember him actually as one of the cops in Copland.
Yeah, I saw that,
and
which is like I don't know what they call that. It's not a movie we're ever going to cover on the show, but we seem to talk about it like every other episode.
Because it's a lot of cross sections. There's a lot of things happening. Like I even remember him being like the chef in Heavyweights, which he's in for like 40 seconds. Like it's this weird for that 6 to 8 years right at the beginning of his career, he just acts and he's just in all of these bit parts. And then he just transitions into this writer-director, and he's definitely directed things he's not written. But like you said, he's not written a lot of things that he hasn't directed, especially when it comes to film. And like I said, as far as his feature film writing credits, this is the only one he doesn't direct, which, like you said, he probably was going to direct it at one point. I can only assume that's probably why he was attached. But ultimately, he ends up just having co-writing credits on this one.
Peter Berg is one of those guys where if you asked him what he does, he can literally just say, "I work in movies," and that's it.
And he's not wrong.
Yeah. Actor, writer, director, producer. He has literally done it all. I wouldn't be surprised if there's like a best boy grip somewhere in his list of work on his resume. He's probably done everything.
Yeah. I wouldn't be shocked whatsoever.
What do you think about those Mark Wahlberg movies? I've seen 2 out of 3 of them. I saw Deepwater Horizon. I saw that twice in theaters, which is a little strange. It's not bad though. I stand by that movie. I really like that. There's sneakily a lot of really good performances in there. John Malkovich he's John Malkovich. He goes full John Malkovich in it. He's a great bad guy. Kurt Russell's a real salt of the earth gentleman in that movie. I'll stick up for that one. I like that one. I saw Patriots Day as well. Other than there's, look, it's a hashtag positivity podcast. I'm not going to go hard on criticism. So when you start to look at the real life story versus movie adaptation, that one gets a little problematic, but otherwise it's a fine movie.
I mean, all 3 of them I think are sitting fresh on the old RT, but I've actually not seen them. They were not things that like when they came out like were checking any boxes for me, and I wasn't really like, especially Patriots Day. Like I was like, I don't know if I want to watch a movie about this. Like, yeah, 'cause I feel like that came pretty quick. I think that was one of the controversies about it. Is it came pretty quick after it happened. But
it did, and they make some weird changes, but
it's he's out there doing his thing. Well,
look, Andrew, I'm going to officially recommend Deepwater Horizon. If you get a chance, if it's streaming, you want to see some awesome performances. I know you love Kurt Russell.
I do.
Lone Survivor, I have not seen. Maybe I'll get around to that one just to finish my bingo card here.
Yeah, you got to get the Mark Wahlberg If I Was There trilogy.
There's another credited writer on this film by the name of James Vanderbilt, a man that we have talked about on the show before. He worked on the Amazing Spider-Man movies, also a writer on The Rundown, just to link him back to Peter Berg there, as well as a writer on Zodiac, my personal favorite David Fincher film.
I mean, and he wrote he was a co-writer on the Scream movie. He's been out there forever. He's been going for a long time. So yeah, this is the film he writes between Zodiac and The Amazing Spider-Man. So I don't know how this all came together, but yeah, he's James Vanderbilt. He's out there doing his thing.
He also wrote Murder Mystery and the upcoming Murder Mystery 2, Adam Sandler Whodunits, which I
have not watched.
You haven't watched Murder Mystery?
No. It's 100% everything I would love in a movie, but unfortunately it stars Adam Sandler.
Look, it's
so
got,
I didn't
late stage Adam Sandler. We know. We get it. It's him in a tropical location with his buddies and a hot love interest. It checks all the boxes, but it's a fun little whodunit. I'm not gonna say it's gonna be up there with Knives Out and Clue as an all-time great, but you love the genre. I think you would enjoy. This is my second. I'm getting some weird recommendations your way, but
You are. You're
Deepwater
going to some
Horizon
deep
and
places
Murder
here.
Mystery, Andrew. Make it a double feature.
Yep. All right. I'm in for Mark Wahlberg and Adam Sandler tonight. Jesus. Vanderbilt was also a producer on a film called Ready or Not.
Love that
Which is
movie.
another one I don't know if a lot of people saw, but also, yeah, awesome.
Starring not Margot Robbie.
Yes. Samara Weaving.
Now, we mentioned this is, of course, based on a comic book of the same name by Andy Diggle and Jock. Jock being the artist, Andy Diggle the writer. Now, I am not too familiar with this writer, but I certainly know Jock. He is one of the most prominent artists out there today, and I would describe him as like the cool comic book artist. If you want someone to do like a cool cover, cool style, I think that's right up. He's got a cool name, goes by one name. He's just Jock. That's my. If I put him in a box, he's the cool box.
He's the cool box. No, yeah, I've been a huge fan of Jock for a long time. From just, I mean, not just his later stage Batman stuff or even the stuff he's doing now, but just like even the 2000 AD stuff he's done. Judge Dredd, he did some Judge Dredd stuff that just looked awesome. But this was early on in both of their careers as far as like mainstream American comics went. I think he'd only done maybe one or two Hellblazer stories before this. And then Andy Diggle is somebody who's, again, they kind of came through the same rounds where they were doing 2000 AD stuff and then kind of like both broke into DC around the same time and did The Losers and a couple of other things. And Andy Diggle's been out there doing other stuff for a while now. He's still out there doing his thing. But yeah, they apparently were also both heavily involved in this film too. Jock more so, because almost all the art you see of these characters in this movie, Jock drew. So that's why it looks so cool.
Which that is awesome. I love that they kept the original creators involved throughout the making of the movie. But Andrew, how do you think it works with like royalties or getting paid for the adaptation? Whenever you adapt a comic book, obviously the writer, I mean, you're adapting their story, their words, their dialogue, the story, the characters they created. But do you think the artist gets compensated in the same way? Because other than the fact that, you know, he drew the opening and closing credits, you don't really use the comic book's art whenever you make a movie. So do you think that they also get compensated whenever their book is adapted?
At the time this came out, DC was under the direction of a gentleman named Paul Levitz, who was because this is technically a DC book. It was published by Vertigo. It's an imprint of DC Comics. It's technically a reimagining of a World War II comic, also called The Losers. So this is there's a lot of things here. So in that regard, I think what they're getting paid is more in relation to how DC sees fit. And at the time, Paul Levitz was very, I was going to say notoriously, but that's not the right word. He was notoriously generous with making sure that like everybody got the stuff they deserved for the characters they created. This led to a rather infamous thing where Jim Starlin, who was the creator of such characters as Thanos and others, said that some of his DC checks for like minor characters were better than the checks he was getting from Marvel for the stuff in the film.
Interesting. That
has apparently been righted, but it's definitely a strange situation. But yeah, so this being a DC book, I think that leads more to how, you know, they didn't have to get anything for this, I imagine. But Paul Levitz was apparently pretty good about making sure that if you were going to use somebody's work very heavily in a film, he made sure they got something for it.
Good on you, Paul. I like it.
Yes.
The movie is directed by Sylvain White. Interesting filmography before The Losers.
Very.
He directed the movie that I have said on this very podcast has the worst title of all time. I'll always know what you did last summer. The straight to
I thought
video.
you said I'll still know what you did last
I
summer.
did, and then you reminded me there's a third
Then I
entry
reminded
in
you
the
this one
movie that was
exists.
straight to video called I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer. That is so dumb. And
Amazing.
get this, Andrew. I don't know if you've seen this one or not, but
I have.
I had to check out the Wikipedia page, and it says the film is the third installment of the I Know What You Did Last Summer franchise, but does not have any of the cast returning from the first two installments, thus making it a standalone sequel to I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. So it's not even the same characters.
How
It's
does
not
this
the
guy
same-
know anything?
Exactly. Who is this guy that will always know this? It's not the same person that still knew it or knew it in the first place.
Oh my
I'll
God.
always
Oh
worst
my
title,
God.
worst movie title.
Worst
Hashtag
title of all
PP,
time.
but come on with that title.
Come on with that title, guys. It is. No, yeah, I agree. I like saw that on his list and was like, oh, you glowed up after that one for sure. Yeah, but
More prominently than that, also directed Stomp the Yard. I admittedly haven't seen it, but it was a big hit and a movie most people are at least familiar with. A lot of TV directing credits to this man's name. Andrew, get this. Here's some of the shows that he directed on. Sleepy Hollow. Remember when they made that a TV show?
I do.
Rush Hour. Remember when they made that a TV show?
I think I see where you're going.
Lethal Weapon, the TV show. MacGyver, the reboot of the TV show. Also directed some episodes of Magnum PI. The
reboot of
yeah.
the TV show.
Also Fargo. Remember when they made Fargo, the TV show? He's directed a ton of TV credits. A lot of them are TV adaptations of movies, which I just find very funny. But also things like Umbrella Academy's got an episode of that in there as well. So really all over the place. A journeyman when it comes to TV directing.
He is, and obviously had done a lot of stuff. We're joking about the things he did a bit later, but earlier on he'd done things with CSI Miami, Hawaii 5-0, the reboot, Person of Interest, The Mentalist. He'd done some non-reboot stuff, but still out there doing television stuff. So good for you, Sylvain.
I found it interesting that Tim Story was initially hired to be the director here. We know Tim Story, no stranger to this show, director of Fantastic Four and Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer, which share some casting with the movie we're about to talk about here. Unfortunately, it didn't work out with him, but that would have certainly been a bit of a darker take on what that gentleman normally directs.
Yeah, I would definitely say so. This is a not quite the family story that Fantastic Four is.
Well, Andrew, what do you say we jump into this movie?
I say let's do it.
A special ops unit that call themselves the Losers are on a mission in Bolivia to take down a drug lord's operation. When the supposed leader of the operation, named Max, gives them orders to destroy a building with children inside, the Losers go rogue and evacuate the building instead. After the kids are loaded onto a helicopter to be flown to safety, it is immediately destroyed with an airstrike that was meant for the team. Now framed for the incident and believed to be dead, the Losers live as drifters in Bolivia until a woman named Aisha approaches the team and offers them a mission to kill Max and return home. Armed with the necessary resources, the Losers travel the globe pursuing Max, but things get complicated when Aisha's true motive for hiring the team is revealed, and more complicated still when a member of the Losers double-crosses the team.
There's a lot going on here.
A lot going on here, packed into a 97-minute runtime. But you know what, Andrew? I appreciate that.
As do I. Keep it tight.
90 to 100 minutes is the sweet spot for, you can tell almost any movie in that amount of time. If you're going the 2 hours, you better justify it.
Make it worth it.
You hear me, Hollywood? Take notes from this guy.
Because I know you're all listening. I know you're all out there.
Well, Andrew, we got a lot to dive into here, but we're going to start with the cast of this movie, and you know what we're going to do. We're going to start at the high point with the best casting and our favorite performance of the film. Each episode, we recognize one person who goes above and beyond the call of duty with their performance and elevates the quality of the entire film, or at least the role that they were given. We recognize that person by giving them the Mark Strong Award. Andrew, who gets your Mark Strong Award for The Losers?
I can't fight against nature here. It goes to Chris Evans for his performance as Jensen.
Fantastic pick. I'm surprised. I thought you were going somewhere else. I had it picked. There's another performance in here that has Andrew's Mark Strong Award winner written all over it. We will get to it, but I am super happy.
We will get to it.
I'm super happy they're going with Chris Evans. But it's also my Mark Strong Award winner. It's undeniable. I will highlight the moment that it was sealed for me. Absolutely. But you go ahead. Why are you going with Chris Evans?
Every scene he's in, I think, is funny. His character is obviously, this is a grave. The story could be it is very dire. The setup that we've got here, the situation as it unfolds, all of that is it could be kind of depressing to watch.
Yeah.
But he is basically here to kind of go against the grain and basically lighten up almost every scene he's in. There's characters that he has a more friendly rapport with. There's one that are a little bit more icy. But every time he is on screen, he is having a blast. Like every scene, he's got gags and lines, and I'm like, these are all hitting for me.
Yeah.
These are all landing. None of it feels super forced. Some of it's a little cheesy, but that's the point. But yeah, I've watched this movie a ton. I asked my sister like who her MVP of this movie was, and she was like Chris Evans, 100%.
Is this another like Williams family movie, like The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, The Losers?
I don't know if it's everyone. I don't know if it's everyone. I know my sister is a big fan of it. I'm pretty sure I saw it with my sister, but my mom probably likes it because she likes all the people in it, and it's not depressing. So that means my mom probably enjoys it. But yeah, I can't deny it. It's Chris Evans as Jensen, Captain Jake Jensen, which means this is the first comic book captain he plays.
Not only is it the first captain, but literally the opening of this movie, the first shot of this movie is the American flag with Chris Evans' voice on top of it, doing a voiceover, and he's a captain. I'm like, man, when they filmed this, they had no idea how iconic this image and voice would become.
It's but yeah, I love every scene he's in.
I agree. He's having so much fun, and he's so important to the balance of this movie. I mean, I said in the synopsis that, man, there's no way around it. They kill 25 kids in the opening scene of this movie. That's what sets off the events. They load up a helicopter full of children, and I had never seen this movie before, but I knew what was coming when they load those kids up, because they're like, oh man, they're so cute. Look at the smiling faces. I'm like, guys, why are you saying that? Something's happening. What's happening? And that happens, they get blown up, and we've got to dig out of the hole from there. And he's so important to the balance of this, because some of these characters, like, we'll talk about them, but like Idris Elba and Jeffrey Dean Morgan are more or less playing it straight as far as being soldiers, about the mission, getting things done. They've got some moments of levity and comedy, but they're much more playing it straight. And if every character was on that level and playing it that way, the entire movie would be totally different. Now, totally different tone, a lot darker, and in my opinion, wouldn't work because the movie is built to be fun. You can see it in the action scenes, and he does so much to bring that levity. Even just the wardrobe, the t-shirts that he wears throughout the movie. I'm happen to be wearing a t-shirt right now, but I rarely wear a shirt that doesn't button up, but I would wear every shirt that he's wearing. It usually oddly has something to do with the scene that's going on. Whenever he's posing as a hot dog vendor, he's got a shirt with some pop art of a woman eating a hot dog. He's got a lot of shirts with a gun on it, a rose coming out of a gun, all over the place. But he looks good in the shirts. Speaking of looks good,
pink shirts.
We know that Chris Evans is a good looking dude. I feel like they kind of maybe not schlub him up like Stallone and Copland, but he's the tech guy. He's the nerdy guy, the computer guy. They give him like these frosted tips and these glasses. They're trying to nerd him up, I guess, instead of schlub him up. And it's a different look for the guy. Yeah, but it works.
Yeah, that's a little bit taken from the comic. That's kind of how the character looks. He has the kind of the spiked hair with the glasses and the kind of chin only goatee.
It's
which
very
I forget the name of.
It's I call it the Logan. It's a very Emilio Estevez in the original Mission Impossible. Like, you put glasses on the guy. Oh, he's the computer specialist. Like, that's
Yeah.
that's part of the uniform.
I also like that, like, he's still kind of awkward.
Yes.
Like, there's a lot of scenes where, like, he, like, there's one, we'll talk about the greater scene, but, like, he walks in and he's trying to, like, woo this girl, and he's like, I like your dress. And he, like, walks around the corner, and he's like, what? What was that? But just a lot of, so obviously, because, he's this, he's chiseled out of marble, but he's having a good time here. And, like, this was, I think he was announced for Captain America in March of 2010. So that was before this movie came out, but not long before this movie came out. And after watching it, I was kind of like, all right, I think I'm good with this. Like, I think I can get behind Chris Evans as Captain America. I think that was really, like, one moment where I was like, because before that, I hadn't really seen anything in him where I was like he's in Scott Pilgrim, but it's like a bit part, and yeah, it's funny, but like he's not in it enough for me to really be like have any hard feelings.
I mean,
about
look,
what
before
it means.
Captain America, we thought Chris Evans, we thought whipped cream bikini. Let's be honest.
Yeah, that's exactly what everyone thought. And it's so here, I watched this movie and like he plays it serious at times. Like there's scenes where there's the heaviness, and he doesn't try to joke up those moments, but he just works with the rest of the plot. And yeah, I was like, all right, I think I'm with it. I think I'm into Chris Evans as Captain America, but he's fantastic in this. I mean, the rest of this cast is all really great. Like everybody does a great job here, like even down to the villains and their henchmen. But like, he's almost worth the price of admission alone.
Yes, I promise we're going to talk more about his performance when we get to our favorite scenes. But let's go through the rest of the losers. The team is led by Clay, played by Jeffrey Dean Morgan, the comedian himself, just a few years after playing that role. I do remember, like, when I saw the trailers for this movie, I was like, oh, this is the comedian's next big thing. Like, oh, he's taken off after Watchmen, because that was, of course, my introduction to the guy. And he, of course, did ascend to stardom after that. But this was, like, the first big follow-up to that movie that I was aware of. And he's great. He's great in everything he's in. This dude has a great look, a great voice. He looks like a gruff leader of a special ops team. And
Right.
These are all like generic compliments, but you see him like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, he's the colonel, sure.
Yeah, he's the leader of this team. That's 100%. Like, I expect that. I expect that of him at that point. Yeah, Watchmen was literally just the year before this, which is kind of crazy to think about. That like it was 2009 and this is 2010. And like I'd seen him in a lot of things. Obviously, he was big on Supernatural at the beginning of that show. He had a recurring role there, where that's when he first kind of got on my
Supernatural
radar.
that old? When is Supernatural?
2005.
Holy cow!
That's when it started, at least.
It was around a long time.
But then he did that. But then also, no stranger to comic book movies himself or comic book related properties. Between Watchmen, he's
Thomas Wayne,
Batman v Superman. I mean, and now obviously he's Negan on The Walking Dead. I mean, that's
right.
He's been doing that for several years now. So no stranger to the comic book genre. I think he's even got a cameo in Jonah Hex of all things. But yeah, he's great here. I mean, he apparently was like really into like he took this movie like as a big deal. Like he was apparently on set like every day, even if they weren't shooting stuff with him. Like he really took ownership of like kind of shepherding this, and that's the kind of stuff you hear about. It's kind of a bummer that it didn't like take off and do well, because this was clearly something that he was really into. But I'm glad we got what we have.
Idris Elba is also in this movie, playing Roke, aka Heimdall, aka Bloodsport. I mean,
Knuckles.
Knuckles himself is in this movie, and he is sort of the number two. They're almost co-leaders at times, Clay and Roke, which means they are both alpha males, and you know what happens when two alpha males get together, like you and I, Andrew, on this podcast.
Yeah,
fighting for attention,
always
for
button
laughs.
heads, always trying to find the best jokes and ice you out of those jokes. But
if you look at any promotional materials, social media, descriptions of our show, if it says the show is by Chris and Andrew, that means I wrote it. If it says the show stars Andrew and Chris, that means Andrew wrote it.
I go alphabetically. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah. Play that card, Andrew. At any rate, Idris Elba, greatest actor of our time, most handsome man to walk the earth. Love seeing him on my screen. I have trouble like coming up with more compliment for the guy because I don't think anything I've ever seen him in, whether it's The Office or action movies, I'm just like, oh, he's perfect. This is exactly what's awesome. Different. He sounds different every time. He has no discernible accent in this movie, which of course means he is changing his accent from its normal cadence, and it's seamless. He's just a perfect actor, Andrew.
He is. I've liked him for a long time. Obviously, Thor and everything was where he kind of like got on a lot more people's radars. But his work he has a television show he does called Luther. That's kind of a police drama. He's been in all of these Marvel movies now. At this point, he was in the villain in Hobbs and Shaw. He was in Cats. He's been in everything. This man has no limits. Cats, folks. Cats. He was McCavity, who's the bad guy. So yeah, but he's fantastic. I mean, like you said, you feel like you're kind of selling the guy short because there's nothing else to really say. But like at the end of the day, that really is kind of what it is. He's great. I will never have a problem seeing Idris Elba on my screen.
Zoe Saldana plays Aisha, aka Gamora herself, is in this movie.
Everyone. This entire cast
is in this movie. And she is fantastic. She is how would you describe this performance? Definitely like I'll let Chris Evans describe it. Towards the climax of this movie, she launches a rocket launcher and a big dramatic shot standing like on the side of a dock. And Jensen says, "That is a badass chick." And I agree, Chris Evans. She is badass in this movie.
100%. So yeah, she's kind of the mysterious one that kind of comes in. So they get burned and her character kind of enters and is like, I can get you, the guy who betrayed you. We can do all this. So they're a little skeptical. They're a lot skeptical. They're extremely skeptical of like her own motives and what she's doing. But kind of Clay really wants his revenge on Max. And so they end up bringing her into the fold. And she's always the one that they're not sure about. And eventually we do figure out what her true motives are. We talk about that a little more with the scenes or whatever. But yeah, I like what she's doing here. Obviously, this was 2010. So this was long before Guardians. This was after Star Trek, though. Which she's also great in. She's just fantastic. She's in 3 of the 5 highest grossing films of all time. No one else has that.
No one else has that?
No one else is in 3 of the 5 highest.
Oh, because of Avatar, right?
Yep.
Wow, Avatar, Infinity War, and Endgame.
That's the 3 she's in. Yeah.
Yeah, impressive.
And then the other 2 are Titanic and Force Awakens. So,
well, that Andrew, that's a fun fact.
It is. I thought so.
Femme fatale, I think it's what you call this character, right?
Yeah,
she
give or
could
take.
Definitely be a Bond girl.
She holds her own though, a little bit more than
not a Bond girl as in a girl that Bond bones, but a Bond girl as in one that fights along his side. A modern Bond girl, Andrew.
Yes.
Let's round out the losers here. Columbus Short plays Pooch. All of these characters have their specialty. It tells you on title cards as they're introduced, those hand-drawn title cards by Jock. It'll say their name, and I believe Pooch here is our transportation specialist.
Yeah, I believe so.
Columbus Short also starred in Stomp the Yard. I gotta imagine that is part of the reason he was brought back in for this movie, but does a great job, gets a few fun quips and one-liners, adds some levity to the team. Maybe not as much as our boy Chris Evans here, but another comic relief at times for sure.
Oh yeah, he's the one that's got a little bit more of a personal story. He's the one that had a life before the losers, had a wife who was pregnant, so that's kind of his recurring story of wanting to get back to that and not wanting to miss those things. So he gets kind of the most human story of all the losers because nobody else we really find out anything else about. I remember Columbus Short from Accepted, of all things.
You remember everybody from Accepted.
Everybody was also in Accepted. That's the thing you have to understand.
You always say it like you're
Copland and Accepted.
You always say it like you're ashamed to know that. We did Green Lantern. Like, Blake Lively, oddly, I know her from Accepted. Yeah, I've seen that movie. I know these people.
It's just strange. Jeremy Howard's in Accepted from TMNT, Columbus Short. Everybody. It's just strange that Accepted and Copland are apparently the only movies I've ever watched that have people in them. So, but yeah, he's the transportation specialist, and he's great. He's got the most like free rapport with Jensen. They're the ones that are kind of quipping back and forth a lot, have a pretty fun rapport. And then, he's got his. It's great. What more is there to say?
And rounding out the team, we have Oscar Yenada playing Cougar, who is the sharpshooter of the team, who is just inherently cool, as all snipers in movies are. A man of few words. He has a signature hat that sort of looks like a Outback type hat, I would say, a hunter's hat. I don't know what you call it, but
yeah,
it's cool. It's stylish. Got like a denim jacket on,
Canadian tuxedo, as it were. But
so cool character.
Yeah, he's very cool. He doesn't talk a whole lot. He's definitely somebody that they let the silence and the look speak for itself. I've seen him in a few other things. He was actually in one of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. I think it was like the fourth one, but also was in Hands of Stone, The Man Who Killed Don Quixote, and Rambo: Last Blood. But yeah, he's here to look cool and have a big old gun. He succeeds at both of those. He's not in the MCU yet, but
not yet. It's inevitable though.
There's time.
Now, Andrew, we got to talk about our bad guys. There's two bad guys that I want to talk about. I love both of these performances. Yep. I was positive that Jason Patric as Max was going to be your Mark Strong Award winner because he's a bad guy who chews the scenery, who is constantly quipping and offing his henchmen. It's got Andrew Mark Strong Award winner written all over it. It has to be like your runner-up, I've got to imagine. Yeah?
Oh, yeah. I like everything that Jason Patric is doing in this movie. He's having a blast with this. Obviously, I mean, Speed 2, probably the thing that I remember him immediately from. But, like, he's just...
Obviously.
But, like,
Speed 2. Obviously.
Speed 2. But, yeah. But, like, he's another guy that, like, every scene he's in, like, I love his first scene where you actually, like, physically see him and, what's his face? What's his henchman's name? Wade. Wade chucks that dude off the roof, and he's just like, what was that, Wade? And he's like, you gave me the nod. I threw him out. He was like, that was at most a break his fingers nod. Like, that was not a throw him off the roof nod. Like, that's the moment that you know this is not just like your standard stoic bad guy. Like, he's gonna have some fun with this, and he's gonna play with the scenery. And there's definitely a timeline where I probably picked him as my Mark Strong, and maybe one day we'll cross over with that timeline. But I think Jensen's just in the movie a little bit more, so it cements it a little bit more for me. But yeah, I love everything he's doing here.
He's so much fun. Every scene that he's in. You mentioned, telling his henchman to give him the nod, and he goes too far with it. There's a scene where he's walking on the beach, and a woman is holding the umbrella for him for the sunlight. And then a heavy wind blows, and she gets pulled back a little bit, so the umbrella moves. Without looking at her, he pulls out a gun and shoots her in the face. Because
he asks for Wade's gun and shoots her in the face. But it's a blast. Great. It's so much fun. He's running with it. He's obviously got his own motives for everything that he's doing, and he's always got a quip, even up to like the last scene where like he's sitting on the bus and he just like the guys walk up and they're like, nice watch. They're just like so defeated, just puts up his arm and lets the guys take his watch from him. But
there's a moment where he walks up to a character who doesn't even have like a speaking role, who's not relevant at all. He just happens to be part of the scene, and the gentleman is significantly shorter than Max, and he's like, you are short. He's like, how much do you weigh? Are you standing in a hole? He just does like this whole comedy bit with this guy for no reason other than
none.
It's fun.
And it's a great performance. He's having a blast with it. He's chewing the scenery. I can't get enough of this. And I wish there was more of it. It's like less Max is really what we're missing out on.
And him and Wade is right-hand man. Man, that is a 1-2 punch right there.
They are great together.
Wade is great. Played by Holt McCallany, who we'll talk about. But as far as the character of Wade, he's not quite like the dumb ogre type number 2.
Right.
He's maybe a little bit more dim-witted than Max, but he just blindly follows. He's like, this is my gig. I'm Max's number 2. He's gonna abuse me, but it pays the bills, I guess. I don't know why he sticks around, but he is so much fun. Doesn't talk as much as Wade. A man of few words, is more of a yes, sir. All right, sir. I'll carry it out. And he's great. Now, he's played by Holt McCallany, like I said. A man that I always recognize when he's on my screen, but can never place until I look it up. This happened whenever I watched Mindhunters, where he is the co-lead of that, playing Special Agent Bill Tench. Mindhunters, by the way, probably my pick for best Netflix original show. Absolutely love that series, with David Fincher, again, to bring it back to him as a showrunner and occasional director of that, which also means the show will never get finished because that man is too busy to get back and finish it. But the 2 seasons of Mindhunters, fantastic. I love it. And while I was watching Mindhunters, I was like, wait a minute, I know that guy. And I looked it up then, and he's also in Fight Club. A much smaller role in Fight Club, but memorable because he has one of the most memorable lines of the movie. Andrew, do you remember who he plays in Fight Club?
No, please enlighten me.
He plays a member of Project Mayhem, which of course isn't going to spring anything to mind, but here's his classic line. He says, I understand. In death, members of Project Mayhem do have a name. His name is Robert Paulson.
He does have that line.
That's him. That's our boy here. That's Wade.
It's also worth noting he's also in Alien 3. So apparently him and David Fincher just go way back, apparently.
Yeah.
Good for you, Holt.
Good for you, Holt.
No, he's great. Like, it's like you said, he's not just like a dumb assistant. He's got like there's moments where like, you know, Max at one point says something's code name is Pulsar. And Holt or Wade is just like, what's that? And he's like, do you have any knowledge of deep space tachyons? And he's like, no. And like, he's not like, he doesn't sound dumb. He's just like, no, why would I? Like, I have no idea what that is. It doesn't matter. And there's a lot of great back and forth with them where like, yeah, he's not dumb, but like, he's very like simple. Like, it's like he's not intimidated by Max, which I think is the interesting piece of it. Like, he's like, obviously he knows Max is dangerous and he knows who Max is, but like, at no point does it feel like he's like, with henchmen, there's always that kind of like, a kind of unspoken kind of, you know, fear of the boss. There's not that here with Wade and Max. And I think that's what makes it so interesting.
Wonderful cast in this movie. All top notch, giving great performances in every scene. So let's talk about those scenes. Specifically, our favorite scenes of the movie, starting with the best scene of the movie. Andrew, in your opinion, when is the losers firing on all cylinders, and what is your favorite scene in the movie?
There's this bit right at the beginning where an American flag comes up, and then right at the end the credits roll. So I think my favorite scene is all of that.
In between the 97 minutes in between those two things?
97 minutes in between. It's about 90 minutes. It's skipping the credits. But no.
Credits are your second favorite scene of the movie.
That is second favorite scene of the movie, yeah. No, I do really like this movie. This is a tough call because I feel like there's different kinds of scenes in this movie. But the one I feel like I have to go with is the Chris Evans showcase of him in the tower. Basically, we got the same Mark Strong Award winner and same. If it works,
scene.
It works.
Yeah.
But they've stolen this courier drive from Max, and they need an algorithm to actually unlock it and find out what's on it. So that requires sneaking in to the building of the manufacturer and getting the algorithm off their mainframe, which are all words that are definitely strung together to sound important. But like, so he sets up this like elaborate infiltration scheme that's not really that elaborate and also not really that sophisticated and also not really that effective.
But it works.
It works.
It gets results.
Like he comes into the lobby and he's singing Don't Stop Believing by Journey, like as he's listening, and he like walks in and he's just walking with authority.
We can't just walk past him singing Journey. I mean, that needle drop comes in 2 times later in the movie because it's so good.
And both are great.
He's got his ear pods in, so he hears the music, but no one else does. And he's not just singing it. He's singing it in the most
he's dancing
over the top falsetto voice and overemphasizing things in such a weird way. Like I had to like write it down how he says it because he says, "A singer in a smoky room, Shamella wine and cheap perfume." So my notes say
Schmella wine.
Shamella wine. Yeah.
No, but the best part of that is that it freaks out everybody else in the lobby, so nobody else gets in the elevator with him, which was the point. That was the entire point, was that he was supposed to weird out everybody so that he could change clothes in the elevator. And at that point, he gets glimpsed on by a couple of women in a scene that, doesn't happen so much anymore, but definitely was not uncommon at the time. But then he has the scene I referenced earlier where he tries to walk into this employee's office to get the algorithm. And the woman's like, you can't go in there. You can't go in there. And he's like, I'll be out and out real quick. And she's like, yeah, but you can't. And he's like, yeah, thank you. I like your dress. And then walks into the office and he's like, what? Who? Jesus. And then it's just every sequence, his humor lands. It's funny. It's got action. It gets fun after a certain point. But this is, to me, like, if I was going to show someone something to get them to watch this movie, it would be this scene.
Absolutely.
Like, this is where I would be like, watch this. And when you enjoy it, like you should, as a human that exists on this planet, I will tell you I will show you where to watch the rest of the movie.
And that's exactly why I pick it as my favorite scene, because it distills what makes this movie specifically great, what it does well. There's a lot of action beats in this one. There's more over-the-top action scenes, or even, you could say, better action scenes. Right. But this one blends the action with the humor to result in just fun and entertaining, which is what this movie is trying to be from start to finish. And this is the pinnacle of that. The scene ends with 3 security guards getting the drop on Chris Evans, and they all pull guns out on him. And he's backed up literally against the window up in the skyscraper. And he pulls out 2 finger pistols of his own, literally just pointing his fingers at these guys. And he's saying that the government did experiments on him, which, again, Captain America. And he mimes that he's going to shoot someone, and that person drops to the ground. And then he mimes to another guy that he's shooting him, and they drop to the ground. And the third guy is like, all right, I give up. And he puts his weapon away. Of course, it's revealed that Cougar, our sharpshooter, is in the building 1 block over, and he's taking these guys out through the window. Very fun.
Yeah, it's a very fun ending sequence. Or like, he finally looks at the last guy, and he's like, face down, or I'll make your heart stop beating with my mind. And then just sneaks out with all of his stuff. But I do. There's one sequence here I love where he's in the office trying to steal the algorithm, and security walks in, and he's like, Skippy? Really? Because that was the fake name he used to get into the office, and then he just and then he just hits him in the face with the briefcase and runs off. And then the needle drop begins, and we get the actual Don't Stop Believing music, which does come back later right before the credits. But yeah, like I said, it distills this movie down to 2 minutes. The essence of this movie is distilled into, and I think it's a blast. Like I said, I'll watch this scene just for fun. Like, if I'm just I'm like, you know what? I just I'll look it up on YouTube and just watch it, because I'm like, this is just a fun scene. Don't have to watch the whole thing, but you should watch the whole thing.
And I'll even say a quick, look, hashtag positivity podcast. We only focus on the positives of a movie. It's our whole mission statement. But a light criticism or just note that I would take about this movie is that the plot can move very fast as far as what their mission is, what their goal is, what their immediate goal is, who's betraying who. It can be a lot at times. It's easy to kind of get lost and kind of ask yourself, wait, what's going on? What's the mission? But in a scene like this, even if you don't know, he's getting the algorithm for the hard drive and all those words, even if you don't exactly know that, it's fun on a beat-to-beat basis. Like I said, you could watch the scene on YouTube with no context and just have a fun action scene. And so even if the story isn't keeping up as well as it should, hashtag PP, an action scene like this carries you through and kind of makes up for it and kind of smooths that criticism over.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a movie where you could argue that I think as the age-old saying goes, the strengths of the film outweigh the faults. The things that are working in this movie are working so well that when there is something that maybe isn't as effective, it doesn't really harm your viewing experience. You don't really like I said, it's not like you get to that moment and you suddenly the momentum stops and you're like, whoa, I'm lost. What's happening? It's more of you're enjoying the ride so much that even if you're not entirely sure what it is they're doing exactly, Which, like I said, the whole we can't unlock this hard drive until we get the algorithm off the mainframe. Like, that's throwing a lot of big words in a row where you're kind of like, I don't really think it works that way or it's that simple. But at the end of the day, like, you can put the dots together without necessarily needing to know all the minutia. And yeah, I don't disagree. But like I said, I definitely think the strengths of the film are superseding any of the potential things that aren't as effective.
You could say, what does the Joker do at Bruce Wayne's party after Batman jumps out the window? But who cares? It's a fun
who cares?
movie.
Yeah. He calls an Uber. Like, it's whatever.
He politely apologizes for wasting the champagne and leaves.
All right, guys, got what I wanted. Peace.
Stops looking for Harvey Dent. A thread running through this movie is a romance brewing between Zoe Saldana's character Aisha and Jeffrey Dean Morgan's character Clay. She approaches him to get the whole team set on this mission to get revenge on Max. And so she sort of has him wrapped around her finger. At least that's what the team fears, is that she's leading him down a path of no good. But he's blind to it because he's attracted to this woman. In fact, in their very first scene together, they can only be doing, you know how in Zoolander they're breakdance fighting? In this movie, they're sex fighting, foreplay fighting. I don't know exactly what to call it, but they're in a bedroom and they are grappling with each other in provocative positions. She's got him in a triangle hold, and then he picks her up and puts her against the wall. And you know what's going on here. It's sex and violence. It's again very Bond and his capable ladies, but it fits the tone of the movie. The movie's always trying to be entertaining and fun. Is it the most tactile fight? Is it how a real fight would go down between a colonel and a mysterious woman trying to recruit him? Probably not, but it's entertaining.
Yeah, it's certainly entertaining. It's meant to kind of establish, well, and it ends up establishing something about the character, is that there is this, she won't have a problem getting into a physical confrontation at all whatsoever, which definitely comes back later. I do really like her character. That scene is particularly good. And then obviously over the course of the movie, she and Clay end up bonding until we kind of find out what her deal is, which it turns out, go ahead and reveal, in the op that begins the movie, they're taking down this regional terrorist who is, they're just meant to target his place and then get out. That's it. There's nothing else to it. But they see that this terrorist has kids on his place, and that's when they make the move to go in. And there's a final confrontation with Clay and the main guy there, and he takes him out. But it turns out this is the main guy's daughter. So she's got a vendetta with Max because Max sold out her father and basically had him killed because he wasn't going to go along with it anymore. But then ultimately, she realizes that she has a bone to pick with some of these guys too because of their role in that op and ultimately killing her father. But they both ultimately kind of come together and realize Max is the bigger problem. Basically, they would not have been in that situation. None of that would have happened if it were not for Max. So there's a tenuous piece that gets drawn. But the back and forth, all of it's really good. Zoe Saldana and Jeffrey Dean Morgan definitely had that chemistry going for him. I buy it.
They do. I think my other favorite scene with her in it is whenever the team realizes who she is. They figure it out while Clay and Aisha are in bed together. And they all bust into the hotel room where they both are. And Aisha knows what's going on. She stands up and she pulls guns. One aimed at the team that just walked in and one aimed at Clay. We have a little Mexican standoff here. And we get a great moment from our Mark Strong Award winner, who we should say, Andrew, is our first 3-time Mark Strong Award winner. Chris Evans, 3 times, baby. Twice for the same character, playing Johnny Storm in Fantastic Four and Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer, and now for The Losers, officially surpassing Sam Elliott. So, for now, our leader and Mark Strong Award winners is Chris Evans. Congrats, Chris. It's in the mail. Keep an eye out for it. Your third one coming your way. But she's got the guns pulled on him, and she points the gun at his crotch. And he says, he's got his arms up, and he's like, she's got the gun pointed at my dick. And Pooch says, would you rather it be pointed at your face? And he says, I know it doesn't make any sense, but yes, I would. Which really got me wondering, if I was in that situation, would that make me more uncomfortable knowing
I
the pain that would come, even if it's not life threatening?
I like the bit just before that where they like burst in and she immediately has the guns drawn on him and they're like, Jensen, where's your gun? And he's like, it's in the van. And they're like, what's it doing there? Not much. it's he's
Always equipped.
always equipped, always a comeback. But yeah, that is a great scene. I actually do really like that scene too, because it's like it feels like everything's kind of breaking apart. It feels like they're starting to lose it, pun intended. But
it's also super stylish. The look of this movie is definitely, we mentioned Jock was heavily involved by the director as far as getting the look of the book right, but it's definitely trying to look like a comic book, much in the same way of Punisher Warzone, right? So it's not so much like Watchmen, there's no like super fancy transitions for the most part, but the sets and the lighting and the cinematography is very much comic book. There's a part where they're in like a big like hangar, basically. It is a hangar, there's a helicopter there. And like the ceiling is purple. And then the back wall is green. I mean, colors that don't make much sense naturally, but it's an aesthetic and a stylish choice because that's how it works in comic books. You've got major colors that run as themes in your background, so they incorporate that here. And the scene we're talking about here in the hotel room is also very stylish because to get out of the situation, Aisha shoots the ceiling, which is full of mirrors because it's that kind of hotel room, I guess. And as these shards of glass are falling, we've got a shot of Clay looking at her, and a piece of mirror falls in slow motion. And in the reflection of the mirror, we see Aisha diving into the bathroom to get away. So it's a very like effective shot because it's showing you a lot of action, but done in such a super stylish way. It's was it necessary for her to be in lingerie, diving away? It's 2010. We'll chalk it up to that. I don't know.
Sure.
That's maybe uncalled for, but the shot and the style I super appreciated, and she ends up getting out the window of the bathroom. So good little action set piece.
But yeah, that was actually something that they worked on in the production of the film, was trying to use the color scheme of the comics. Because in comics, you'll set the tone of a scene with just 2 or 3 colors, sometimes even less. And so they really did try to mimic that on screen here. And I don't think enough people realize that, but it's cool.
I also appreciate whenever they get smuggled back into the United States, they do it in coffins. So they arrive at their, getting their life back, and they emerge from coffins. A little on the nose with the symbolism there, but why not? Why not be on the nose?
Why
It's
not?
that kind of movie.
I do like that. It's a nice little touch. One of the more, I guess, action sequences that I really like in the film is the scene where they steal the whole van. So there's this big action set piece where they have been led to believe by Aisha that Max is in this truck. And so we've got Wade and all of his guys, they're marking the truck, they're guarding it for this whole caravan, and the losers implement their very effective plan. This is the scene where Chris's intro line comes from, where they're all positioned. So Roke and Clay are in a Pinto that they have a bunch of fun back and forth trashing.
Banana colored
Roke
Pinto.
is trashing it. Classic piece of yeah. But so they're in the truck, kind of watching everything happen. We got Jensen over there, kind of on reconnaissance with the hot dog stand, where he's kind of and these hot dogs are delicious. While up in the and then you've got like, so they're all, this is if you want the scene where like they're all doing their thing, this really is kind of it. You've got Jensen doing the technological side. He kind of locks out he's doing the reconnaissance, and then he ends up blocking out the van. You've got Pooch up in the helicopter. You've got Cougar giving support. You got Roke doing explosives, and you got Clay overseeing the whole thing. So it's just a real, like, that's it. That's the scene where you're actually seeing all of them in action, kind of doing their thing, which is evident by the fact that Clay, the boss, does nothing. So it just emphasizes how useless all bosses in the country are. But no, I do love that scene a lot. And then obviously that's what kind of kicks off the latter half of the film. But yeah, just a great action set piece. They haul away a whole truck. It's very with a helicopter.
It reminds. It's like a Fast and Furious style action set piece. Like,
yeah,
is it necessary to lift a truck from traffic and swing it through a city and hit a billboard on the way out? I don't know if that's ever the most efficient way to do it, but it's the kind of thing that you see in over the top blockbusters, and this is
Right.
before the Fast and Furious went in that direction. So it very very fun though. I definitely like that.
Again, we're here first, folks. We got Chris Evans as a captain. We've got big elaborate car heists. Everything's here first, folks.
The movie, like I said in synopsis, takes place all over the world, and we've got these sort of diegetic title cards that are in the scene that announce where we are. Such exotic locations as Dubai, Puerto Rico, and New Mexico. Again, much like we said back on Hellboy, not a lot of consistency. It's really geared towards the American viewer that doesn't know the geography. Puerto Rico, we know Puerto Rico. We might not know a city in Puerto Rico, so they're just going to tell us it's Puerto Rico. Dubai, yeah, that's an important enough city that we know Dubai. New Mexico, we know our states, New Mexico. And some cities in America are so important, Andrew. They get their own title card. Like
Houston?
Yes.
Imagine if it had just said Texas.
That tells you nothing. I mean,
nothing.
If you were, I'm sure someone like, I guess in England watching this movie would be like, oh, Texas, yeah. But if you know Texas like we do or live here, Texas could be anything. So Houston's a little bit more specific. But of course, it's going to be a Texas city that feels like it's so important. It deserves its own title card.
Of course. I do think, obviously, got to give a shout out to the final big fight. I think there's a lot of cool stuff. They blow up a plane with a motorcycle. It's awesome.
With a motorcycle and Wade. A motorcycle and Wade.
A motorcycle and a Wade blow up this plane. But yeah, this is at the final moments, basically right after Aisha's identity has been revealed, the team opts to still go in and do the heist, essentially. And it is here that the traitor, the mentioned in the synopsis, is revealed, and it is Roke. He, after what happened in Miami, he basically cut a deal because he's not necessarily wrong in what he feels, is that he feels like Clay's kind of blinded by his need for revenge. And he feels like he's kind of been not letting them do the things they possibly should because he's got narrow vision towards Max. And, he's going about it all the wrong ways, but it comes from this place of like, there's a moment of like, I can't blame this guy for being frustrated because he's kind of tired of kind of like, jumping from day to day, really, not really being able to get back to anything because he feels Clay is not doing what he should be. And so he turns. Now, obviously, with Max, you're never going to have a good time there. But at this point, things are looking a little hopeless. The losers all get captured. Pooch gets shot in both his legs. Things are looking a little dire. And then that's when Aisha returns with her rocket launcher, as you mentioned earlier, and kind of gives them the distraction they need to swing things back in their favor. And it is during this brouhaha that the plane blows up, Roke blows up, Wade blows up, the motorcycle blows up, everything blows up.
Everything blows up. In Aisha with the rocket launcher, again, it happened here first. Her putting that big old weapon over her shoulder before Gamora ever does it with the ship gun over her shoulder. It happened here first.
It happens here first, folks. This beat everything to the punch.
Even the A-Team, which this movie gets compared to. This movie came out first, before that A-Team reboot.
And yes, and I'm not telling you which one you should watch, but you should watch this one. But yeah, so this is a lot of fun set pieces here, a lot of good fights, a lot of, you get all the team doing their thing again, and then we do get our first confrontation, really, between Clay and Max, who spend this entire movie Max spends almost the entire movie not in the presence of any of the losers.
It's very cat and mouse. They're chasing.
It's very cat and mouse. Little Fifth Element-esque there, except those guys never meet in that film. In this one, they finally do have a face-off at the end, but Max ends up escaping because he caters to Clay's empathetic side by basically saying, you can either stop me or stop the bomb, and throws the remote control trigger, and so Clay opts to stop all of Los Angeles from sinking into the ocean, which mighty Canadian of you. It's what we do. But So then Max escapes. That's when we get the scene where he just lets the guys steal his watch. So there's it definitely felt like they were kind of throwing their cards towards maybe getting to do some more with these characters. But I do love this final sequence. Again, you're getting all the characters. You get Jensen and Pooch quipping back and forth. You get Cougar looking silent and cool. You get the fight. You get a sort of reconciliation with Aisha and Clay, where they kind of, like I said, they make their uneasy peace as far as Max is the goal, and then after Max is dealt with, we'll get back to our thing. And it's a fun, over the top, ridiculous action sequence. Again, they blow up a plane with a motorcycle before Fast and the Furious. I'm sure that's happened in a Fast and the Furious movie. I can't tell you which one, but I'm sure it has, or something like it has happened. So all of it here first, folks.
Yeah, it's a great, appropriately over the top final action set piece, and it's humor throughout. Whenever Clay has Max dead to rights and Max is holding the trigger that sets off the bomb, he's like, "Well, you can't shoot me," and Clay immediately shoots him.
Yeah, it just immediately shoots him. Then he just does the whole "ow, that hurts."
It's good, fun, and laughs throughout. I had a great time with this movie. This was, like I said, not a super challenge to our premise. Normally it is, we say all the time, this is a personal challenge for us to be more positive and look positively at movies, but I had a good time with this one. Very
no trouble here
throughout.
Yeah, this is a great one. It's a great cast. Like you said, is the plot the most original? Maybe not. The idea of, disgraced soldiers living in the underground. There was a whole television show about that spawned its own film reboot. But I think this movie, like you said, the things that it's got going for it are all so strong that it makes it a fun ride no matter what. You've got a fantastic cast that have great chemistry with each other. You kind of buy that these are all like buddies at this point, or at the very least, they've all been together for a very long time. They all have their rapports. They all know each other. There's the history. Even that first card sequence at the beginning of the film, it jumps right out at you how these relationships work, who are the more friendly, who are the more stoic. It nails it pretty much out the gate as far as the interpersonal relationships with the team goes. And there's great humor, there's great action set pieces, how can you go wrong?
And with the creators of the comic being so involved throughout the production of this movie, Andrew, I've got to imagine this is a pretty solid adaptation of the book.
Yeah, it's playing a lot with, the book runs for, I think, 5 or 6 volumes, and there is eventually a sort of resolution of what happens with Max. This doesn't get there, but we're playing a lot in those early volumes. A lot of this is a pretty accurate summation of what's going on there, definitely as far as the characters and just how Max kind of works. A lot of that comes from the comic, so I definitely recommend it. I think they've redone it so that there's just 2 volumes of this, but it's just the Losers, Volume 1 and Volume 2, and you just look to make sure it's the Andy Diggle Jock one from about this time. But it's definitely worth reading, if only for Jock's artwork. You can never go really wrong with looking at Jock's artwork. He's very good at that whole drawing thing.
Got it down.
He's pretty, like I said, that dude, he knows how to do it. Yeah, you could say it's his livelihood. But yeah, so you can't go wrong giving this comics a read. They pop up on sales occasionally for $6 a volume, and these are the big oversized 12, 15 issue volumes, so it's a lot of value for what you're getting there. And yeah, I really like this movie.
Andrew, this movie has a stacked cast. Unironically, we say that a lot, but this really has, even in 2010, these actors, most of them would go on to be more prolific and more high profile. But even in 2010, most of these guys are already on their way with their career or coming off a big hit. And it's only gotten bigger since then. The cast of this movie, it's nuts.
It really is. Like I said, Holt McCallany, he's kind of that guy you've always seen. But everybody else, especially the top 4, Elba, Saldana, Morgan, and Evans, everybody knew who they were at the time for the most part anyway. And like I said, these people have only gotten more famous. So it really is. It's one of those movies that you look back at and you're just like, wow, they were Like nowadays, this movie would be so much more expensive to make. Like,
Yes, a sequel will never happen. Like regardless of the reception and box office,
they would all have to take like scale just to make it affordable.
Yes, and it's funny because they all go on to play superheroes as we noted throughout the episode, but they're also playing comic book characters in this movie. This is a movie
Right.
based on comic book characters, and I was thinking watching it like it's probably hard to cast a movie today that doesn't have someone that's tied to comic books. It's like 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, but it's 6 degrees of getting back to a comic book, which really beg the question. Something I've been thinking about since I watched the movie is, what's like the biggest name today you can think of that has never been a superhero or comic book character? Because like freaking Kate Blanchett is a supervillain, right? She's been pulled in. I keep forgetting that Christian Bale, I mean, he was Batman already, of course, but he's coming back as a supervillain. Like, he's doing it again.
Yep.
There's, who's up there? Like, Ian McKellen was Magneto. What's the biggest name that hasn't touched this stuff that you can think of?
Has Tom Cruise done anything?
Aside from basically playing a superhero and everything he's in, they're not superheroes based on comics.
Yeah, so like I think Tom Cruise is like your free pass on that one, just because like he's not technically been in a quote unquote comic book. And then again, I say that, but I don't actually like. I'm not sure that he has.
Yeah, off the top
like
of my head, I don't
can't think.
so.
He's not in the MCU. He's not in the DCEU.
I mean, he was courted to be Iron Man for a long time before that could become an MCU project. And he wanted to play Ozymandias for Watchmen, but that didn't happen. So he's come close at least twice.
I've heard many people on the internet say that Tom Cruise is going to play Tony Stark in a variant of Tony Stark in Doctor Strange 2, and there's no way people on the internet would lie to me, Chris.
Ever. No, nothing but truth out there.
No. God, I think.
What about Brad?
Tom Cruise is like.
What about Brad Pitt? Yeah. The other
he's
guy
definitely up there too.
I mean, technically, he's in Deadpool too. We should note.
That's true. He is technically. I mean,
is that character, comic book expert Andrew? Help me out. The character that he plays, is that a comic book character, or is that a goof made up for the movie?
Who does he play?
He's the invisible character. So you literally don't see him until he gets electrocuted, and you see him for a flash. Spoilers for Deadpool 2. I'm sorry, but the better of the Deadpools, I should say.
Let's see. He plays Vanisher, who is technically a supervillain.
So technically he's played a comic book character?
Technically, yeah, that's what we're saying. Technically, he has. And then Matt Damon, even though he's not been like a starring character, has had cameos in a lot of
Deadpool 2 as well.
In Deadpool 2.
and
then he also cameos
Thor.
in Thor 3, Thor Ragnarok, and will apparently be reprising that cameo in Thor Love and Thunder.
Which, the joke of that is that he played Loki in Dogma. So that's why he's playing Loki, the actor, in the Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise.
It's
Thor.
It's very meta. I am trying to like you
can go with like older actors. It might be like
you could say Jimmy Stewart.
I wasn't going that old, but I was thinking like George Clooney. Like George Clooney probably hasn't. Oh, he's played Batman.
Batman.
What
the hell are you talking about? Oh my God! I thought you were joking. I was like, "Whoa, good joke." What the?
What about? Oh my gosh, Sandy. What's his name? John Travolta. Does John Travolta play a superhero? Because again, a little bit. Well, he would have had to be in like the 90s or the 80s.
I like how Grease was your go-to for John Travolta.
That's
not anything else.
Has he made a bigger movie than Grease, Andrew?
I mean, the internet tells me Pulp Fiction is the most important movie of all time. So,
and the internet doesn't lie.
No one on the internet would lie to me. I don't know. I feel like John Travolta's another guy that like definitely has it. Well, let's look. Let's see for sure. Well, he was in The Punisher. So he doesn't technically play a character.
Well, I think
Howard
counts,
Saint's not a comic book character, but he's in The Punisher.
I think that counts. I think that counts. I think that disqualifies him.
If you're in the movie, especially as the villain, I think that definitely is definitely something where you're not getting away with that one.
If Matt Damon's stupid cameos count, then him playing the main villain are going to count.
Nicolas Cage was Ghost Rider and also sort of Superman.
I'm so yeah, of course he was. I almost said Nicolas Cage. I'm glad I didn't because I almost said
you left that one for me.
yes. Now we're both stupid.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't. I just did a quick scroll through Tom Cruise.
Like even Arnold, Arnold has
Mr. Freeze.
Okay.
We're
just blocking Batman and Robin from our brains.
It's literally a movie we've covered on this podcast.
Sylvester Stallone got in with Guardians and Suicide Squad. I mean, Suicide Squad's more of just a voice, but still counts. John Cena's gotten in on it. The Rock is doing Black Adam.
Yeah.
Which good for you, Rock.
What
I don't
about,
think there's any other way that movie would have gotten made.
What about Ryan Gosling? He almost played the Joker in the Suicide Squad. Or
did he?
In the
or
first,
he was in the running.
The first one, yeah, Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
But that fell through. Other than that, I don't think Ryan Gosling has played a comic book character.
I don't think so, no.
So is that Tom
Russell
Cruise and
Crowe
Ryan
had
Gosling?
Jor-El. Man, I'm trying to think like big, like is Tom Hanks? Has Tom Hanks done anything?
No, he's done nothing. Road to Perdition is based on a comic book. What do you think about that?
Oh yeah, we're getting the technicalities there. That works.
That's again one of those. It would have been like the 80s or 90s if he played one. So it's a little bit, it's before the big.
And Chris, you friggin' knew what I meant. Don't give me that. No, he's done nothing nonsense. You knew what I was talking about. Oh.
Does he make movies, Andrew? No,
Tom Hanks. I feel like he's just a guy that's known for being Tom Hanks.
He's just known for being very nice, very likable.
I mean, Seth Rogen did Green Hornet. Joseph Gordon-Levitt was in Dark Knight Rises. Is definitely not Robin.
Josh Brolin was Jonah Hex's most famous comic book role he's played.
Yeah, definitely.
Will Smith.
Hugo Weaving.
Well, Will Smith.
He's
Hancock.
But he was Deadshot.
Oh, yeah.
Suicide Squad.
Man, dude, everybody's played.
We're bad at this.
If we catch it during the episode, we're fine.
That's not the problem.
If this goes out, if you're listening to this and we say something stupid and don't catch it, feel free to roast us.
Email us back and be like, "You guys are dumb."
But I think Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise, Ryan Gosling. I think Tom Cruise
is
the top. I think he's definitely the top because he's definitely one of like the big like movie stars of yesteryear that has never gotten there. I'm just trying to think of like
what about actresses? Because like Kate Blanchett's at the top and she's done it. So what are some other big?
Julia Roberts has never done it.
Yeah, but again, it's more like I don't want to say she's like the last generation, but like there's got to be some more current talent, that has avoided to stay out of it. That I find that much more. I feel like Meryl Streep has probably never. Played
if Glenn Close can be in Guardians of the Galaxy, why are we not going after?
True. Okay, fine. Julia Roberts, let's put her up there. One of the biggest to not play a comic book character.
Has Meryl? I don't think Meryl Streep has she?
I don't think so.
No, but let's see if we can find. Let's think of some younger people.
Young actress. So, Tilda Swinton isn't young, but she was the ancient one.
She was the ancient one. Even like Anya Taylor-Joy was in New Mutants.
Margot Robbie, who's obviously Harley Quinn. It's Andrew. It's everyone. Everyone's been.
Anna de Armas, I don't think has been in one. She's kind of still coming up though.
Yeah, not yet. Not yet.
But more than likely.
I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. That's someone to keep an eye on. Yeah, so as far as like actresses working today, rising stars, prominent. Samara Weaving, we mentioned earlier, Ready or Not. I don't think she's done it.
No, she was in. Bill and Ted is not a comic movie, so.
Okay, I think we've named the 5
Great
people.
Question. Great question.
I think we've named the 5 people. If you can think of a more prominent actor or actress than the 5 that we've named, or just want to throw some more names into the hat, let us know. Hit us up wherever. Twitter @BOTRcast. Jump into our Discord. There's a link in the episode description. Send us an email, bestofthebrestpod@gmail.com. We're online. We're easy to get a hold of. Send us that name. See if you can top us. Top those names of actors and actresses that have not played a comic book character. And honestly, we love talking about dumb stuff like this. So if you want to ask us a question, you can send it to all the same places. Email, Twitter, Discord. Send us your questions. and it doesn't have to be movie related. Ask us whatever you want. On the back half of these episodes, we're going to start answering your questions. We're going to have a question of the week. So again, hit us up, social media, Discord, send us your thoughts, send us your questions. And we're going to have some fun with it on the back of these episodes. And after you send us that question, also hit up Apple Podcasts. Leave us a review. Leave a review for every podcast that you listen to. It's the nice thing to do. And remember, maybe not every movie is great,
but all movies have greatness.
Thank you to Mark Benavides for singing our theme song. Follow him on Instagram at NotThatMarkAnthony. Thanks to Mitch of Depressed to Impress for the music. Check him out on YouTube and twitch.tv. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. It's the only way we're going to grow. And follow us on social media at BOTRcast. Thank you. Woo. Do they? I was a little. Let me clear a few things up. The Losers. Is that a? They give themselves that name?
I mean, yeah.
Like Max calls them that on the radio, but was that already what they were calling?
Well, right at the beginning of the movie where they're playing the dumb card game.
Yeah.
Clay goes, "Hey, losers!"
That's right. So it's like a self-deprecating kind of name, I assume.
How do you like my Jeffrey Dean Morgan impression?
That was good. That was very good. I'll put that post credits if you want. You could say, "What does the Joker do at Bruce Wayne's party after Batman jumps out the window?" But
right.
Who cares? It's a fun movie.
Who cares? Yeah. He calls an Uber, like, you know, it's whatever.
He politely apologizes for wasting the champagne and leaves.
All right, guys, got what I wanted. Peace.
Stops looking for Harvey Dent. The Dark Knight sucks, dude.
I'm gonna save that voice line forever. Anytime Chris says anything, I'm gonna be like,
Dark
Knight sucks. It's gonna be my ringtone for you.